Hello, this is my Unit 15 Sports Rehabilitation Program for my first athlete. So my first athlete is a player called Izzy Brown. He plays for Brighton. His sport is football, and he plays in sort of a centre attacking midfielder position, also known as a cam, and he's a professional footballer. And the injury that he has sustained is a torn ACL, and the estimated recovery time for that particular injury is 4 to 6 months. So the overview, so basically what happened was he was playing a game of football, the ball rebounded into open space, making it a race to retain possession. Basically what happened is he went to take a shot on goal, and at the same time a player on the opposing team went to go clear the ball, so they literally kicked the ball at the same time, and this heavy impact collision caused a tear in his ACL, and then ruling them out for a duration of up to 6 months. So as you can see here, there's 26 individual weeks within that 6 months. And within that 6 months, you've got to break down the recovery into 4 separate sections. So the first is known as the acute section, second, functional movement, third, strengthening, and 4, sport-specific training. So within the acute stage, all you're really looking to do is reduce the swelling of the injury. And then once you get into the thirdish week, then you're going to start trying incorporate some more functional movements that introduce proprioception. And then when it gets to about week 9, you're looking at improving the strength of that particular area, so by introducing body weight and weight training exercises. Then once you get to about week 18 or so, you're looking to add in more skills specific sports training into their recovery. So going back to the acute section, so the first 2 weeks of sustaining the injury, so you're mainly resting until pain and swelling has disappeared. And during the functional movement stage, your main training focus is static and dynamic stretchings for your muscle to maintain your range of motion, and passive and ballistic stretching to further increase your range of movement and to introduce balance and stabilization work. And then in the strengthening phase, your training focuses are body weight exercises at low intensity and a high amount of repetitions. To use free weight exercises at higher intensities and lower amounts of repetitions for your next training focus. And then the third training focus towards the end of the strengthening phase is eccentric loading exercises such as weighted stretches for low to high repetitions. And then for the last 8 or 9 weeks during the sport-specific training section, your training focuses would be to introduce lateral movements and direction-changing drills, then to introduce speed and power back into training, and then finally introduce all strength, speed, and agility drills into sport-specific training. So here you can see a graph showing the 3 stages of healing. So this orange one here is the inflammation stage. That doesn't last too long. And then the repair stage is the blue one, and as you can see, it has a larger duration. And then lastly, the remodeling phase is this big green one here, and that shows that it has a much longer duration than the other 2 stages. Okay, so here is my treatment, so how I will treat this athlete's injury. So to start off, in the first week or so, I wouldn't give them soft tissue massages because I feel as though that might aggravate the injury, and that's not something we want to do during that early phase. Also during the, and I might introduce it during the second week of the acute phase. I wouldn't do any deep tissue massages because of obviously the same reason, because you don't really want to aggravate that injury at all because it would be very tender and painful for the athlete. Then I would definitely introduce cryotherapy and also thermotherapy, but I don't really feel as though it's as important. The reason why I would introduce these 2 is because the constant cold and warm temperatures will keep blood flow going to the knee, which is where the ACL injury has occurred, and that is vital for this kind of injury, to keep the blood flow going. That will really help recovery. Wouldn't apply any electrotherapy, acupuncture or cupping during this very early stage. I would introduce taping for the athlete because It would therefore strengthen the knee, give it a little bit more strength to it. And I wouldn't introduce any flexibility, proprioception, or strength exercises. And then during the functional movement stage, I would definitely start to introduce some soft tissue massages, just to gently increase range of movement, just getting more blood flow to that knee. Still wouldn't do any deep tissue massages because you don't really want to go too hard on the massages because, again, you don't really want to aggravate the injury. Cryotherapy, still definitely going to be using, maybe using it a little bit less, but still are using it very much so, and as well as the thermotherapy. And then electrotherapy, brought in again to help increase the range of movement, which is important in this functional movement stage. Still no acupuncture or cupping. Again, taping just to keep the strength of the joint there, and definitely start to introduce some flexibility exercises, to increase range of movement again, and then proprioception again to increase the stabilization and increase range of movement, and then lastly, still no strengthening drills. And then once we move on to the strengthening phase at the start of about week 9, still using soft tissue massages, maybe using them a little bit more now because the muscle or the injury has had time to heal, so it's time to keep that blood flow moving to the injury, and then starting to also introduce deep tissue massages, but not too often, but you still are introducing them, so that you can really get that blood flow into that injury. Then cryotherapy, still using it, maybe reducing the amount that you're using it now as the injury has healed from its original inflammation stage, and it's now onto the repair stage, but still using it, and the same with the thermotherapy as well. And then moving on to the electrotherapy, still using that again as we were in the functional movement stage, but maybe dialing it down a little bit because the range of movement is getting better, but it obviously still needs to be recovered more. Again, still not using acupuncture or cupping. Taping, maybe using that a little bit more now as they start to exercise more. They want that physical strengthening of the ACL, and also maybe it's a mental thing as well. Maybe they want to look at their knee and think that it is a lot stronger, because that will give them that confidence as well, and then increasing that even more during the strengthening stage. Flexibility, again, it's very important at this stage, because you're still trying to increase the range of motion with all the exercises that you're doing, and still doing proprioception, but dialing it down a little bit as that was more for the functional movement stage. Then most importantly, during the strengthening stage is obviously doing strength exercises. So as you can see, it starts off at about 4 here, so it's like kind of building into it. And then by the last 2 weeks, in the mid section of strengthening, really making that important, because that's obviously what you want to do. And then starting off the next section, going back to a 4, so then build your way back up to 5s, because it is the main focus for this stage. And then as we move on to the sport-specific training, soft tissue massages have become not as necessary as they were before, but they are still being used just to maintain that blood flow. You don't want to lose that there. But the deep tissue massages now are the more dominant of the two, definitely getting a lot of work going into that knee to make sure that it is nice and strengthened. Cryotherapy, thermotherapy, and electrotherapy are still being used at this point, but again, they have died down considerably as the ACL has had a long time to recover now, so it's just dying it down. Still no acupuncture or cupping. Taping still very important, again, mainly for that psychological edge that it has with the athlete, because that's always very beneficial. Flexibility. Now we're into the sport-specific stage. I felt as though flexibility would again be something that the athlete would want to work on, because they don't want to be, let's say, just like not that flexible, and then trying to go back into doing sport-specific training. They don't want to injure themselves again. Proprioception, starting off again quite light, and then maybe building it up again in the last few weeks of the injury recovery, as they're starting to do more sport-specific, so they need like quick reactions. And then strengthening, I started off quite slowly with a 2, building up to a 3 and then up to a 4 as they're really building their strength up again to hopefully get back out onto the pitch. So my treatment overview for the inflammation stage. So during the inflammation stage, when the injury is first sustained, the treatment methods will include use of hot and cold treatment. Use of cryotherapy and thermotherapy will enhance the blood flow to the area of the knee, like I said earlier, which will decrease the duration of the injury time, so they'll recover quicker. The taping will be used to strengthen the player's knee. It also has a psychological benefit, as I said, and allows the player to feel as though the knee is stronger. And then during the repair stage looks to increase the range of movement and strength of the player's ACL. Therefore, treatment methods include flexibility and proprioception sessions each week, as well as deep tissue massages to ensure the blood flow to the ACL remains constant. Also, during the repair stage, electrotherapy is beginning to be used, as this helps to increase the range of movement as well and increase strength of the ACL. A crucial element of this stage was to include strengthening exercise to slowly retain strength in the player's knee. And then lastly, the remodeling stage. This includes constant use of deep tissue massages, reason being that it's crucial to maintain blood flow to the area. Also, to use strengthening exercises is still vital for the player's recovery, as they need to make sure that they are fully re-strengthened their ACL. To aid this, they are still using treatment methods of taping the players, which also helps physically and mentally. Proprioception and flexibility sessions still take place in this stage to make sure that the player's range of movement is constantly being increased. Okay, now moving on to the goal-setting aspect of recovery. So here I have a number of short-term goals. So starting off with coming to terms with your injury. That is a good goal to start off with. Then setting up a diet plan. Now that you're less active, if you start making a diet plan, then you won't just put on weight because you'll be eating like relatively healthily. And then just doing something as simple as doing the recommended stretches from the physio each night is also very beneficial for aiding recovery. And then as you can see, the rest are here. You can just look through. Getting enough sleep is also a very crucial one, because getting enough rest can really decrease the injury time. So some medium goals for you here. Watching your own previous game footage so you can see what you can improve on when you come back to training. So by doing this, obviously you're staying closely related to the sport, so you don't fall out of touch with it. And maybe watching the game footage as well makes you determined to really get back out there because you're missing what you enjoy doing. Returning to sport-specific training is another medium goal as well. And then possibly training with the reserve team, moving on through the injury. Now on, what is that? Probably about week 12 to 13, 14. So yeah, trying to get back into the reserve team, training with them. Then possibly playing a full 90 minutes with the reserve team. So not first team football. Maybe the game's a little bit easier. If you can't really make the 90 minutes, possibly like 80 would be fine. Then come and subbed off. And then the last goal, maybe play a return to first team training and be able to complete just a half game with the first team, because it's obviously going to be full paced because it's the first team playing. And then obviously your long term goal would be getting back to the first team and playing regular football, and to retain a similar or better level of fitness than before the injury was sustained. So this here is the treatment plan here. So all of the numbers I've converted into a graph for you to see. I know it looks like a bunch of squiggly lines, but that is a graph to show the duration and how they're all incorporated into that.